I'm the oldest Sam.
I'm Hunter Davis.
I'm Zach Sandler.
I'm Jay Moore's son.
Andrew Anderson.
And you are listening to the Local Sounds.
And you're listening to the Local Sounds
And you are listening to the Local Sounds
And you're listening
podcast.
to the Local Sounds
And you're listening to
podcast.
the Local Sounds podcast
with my friend Taylor Davis.
My friend Taylor Davis.
My friend Taylor Davis.
My good friend Taylor Davis.
My friend Taylor Davis.
Hello out there to the world. Hello to my outcasts, my loners, the musicians, the poets, the punks, the degenerates, and anyone else who might have stumbled over to this podcast. I hope all of you are doing very well in this crazy 2020 time that we're living in. I have friends not only across this great country, but across the globe that are out there probably listening right now, dealing with one aspect or another of this very, very strange time that we're all living in together. I know from my own situations, nothing about this process has been easy. Physically, mentally, emotionally, nothing is easy about it, For those of you out there that don't know, my name is Taylor James Davis. I'm a singer-songwriter from Indiana, currently residing in Miami, Florida. And this is the second season of my limited edition podcast series, Local Sounds. Now, let me take you guys back. If you're just joining us for the first time and you don't know anything about me or this podcast. At the start of this pandemic in March of 2020, folks in the art scenes all across the world were cut off from their entire worlds, me included. For me, in the world of live music, live collaborating, curated shows, playing shows, traveling on the road for shows, simply getting together at a bar for a drink to scout a new band with another friend of yours or mine was off the table. My personal connection to the artistic community, not only in Miami, but in places like New Jersey, New York City, Alabama, Indiana, these things are a true source of meaning and purpose for my life. Not only playing the shows myself, but I'm a guy who attends a lot of shows. I check out new performers, I check out new bands. I'm always trying to keep track of who's being talked about next on the scene. And also on top of that, for the last 3 years, I've ran the open mic at the legendary Churchill's Pub in Little Haiti. And from November 2018 till March of 2020, I must have seen thousands of acts of all different types. Scouting performers for my own showcases, putting together curated shows, performing at friend shows, doing community outreach events with music friends, simply collaborating, jamming, recording with others. All of these things gone in an instant, in a shutdown, isolation, in a lockdown. The momentum that so many artists I know have been building for the last few years came to a crashing halt. All of this stuff was on my mind because it was happening to me. It was happening to my friends and collaborators, but it was also happening to the venues around the world that us musicians and artists and comedians and writers and poets that we call home. The places that first let us as a musician plug in our guitar, try out our new material, demo a new song, or in my case, run a 20-year historic open mic connected to so much longevity and history for so many artists here in Miami. These places of refuge have created a playing ground for our scene to actually take place. Now, these places are fighting for their business lives, or they've already lost that fight. What a crazy year to be alive. So what was I going to do to try to play my part in this whole thing? What was I going to do to bring my community of friends and players together? That's why I decided to create this Local Sounds podcast. In 3 limited edition episodes in season 1, we introduced the audience to 33 artists of all different types with 33 brand new songs that most of them have never heard before. Bands, rappers, singer-songwriters, pop, punk, rock, instrumental music, Spanish music, and more from men and women all across the world that I am blessed to call my friends. The best part for me about the whole thing was getting a chance to talk for a couple minutes in depth about these artists and the impact that they originally had on me and consistently still have on me, especially now when we can't go out and see folks live at all. If you guys are interested in listening to any of those episodes or revisiting them, you can download them here on SoundCloud or on YouTube at the Local Sounds Podcast. The podcast's 3 episodes in the last 6 months have had a few thousand listens on all platforms, and I've been overwhelmed with messages from folks I know and folks I don't with a great amount of love for that music and those episodes, and for that, I can't say thank you enough. A lot of folks have been asking me for more music, and I'm currently in the process of gathering up more music for the future with new and returning artists. But for now, I figured the new music that I did have was my own. I have a new record coming out January 1st that I've been working on the last couple years called At Night in the Dark. Some of those songs my audience has already heard, The Devils Are Here and Gone. But tonight you'll hear the exclusive first listen of my new single, Cold in July. Not only that, but over the next 7 episodes in the next 4 weeks, I'll be sitting down with 7 folks of all different backgrounds and walks of life in one art scene or another. Not only music folks, but folks in comedy, local scene legends, and more to talk shop, not only about the arts and this crazy 2020 that we're living in, but to talk and play music from my upcoming record, At Night in the Dark. Tonight, before I introduce our first guest and get into conversation, I wanted to start things off with debuting for you all my brand new single out tomorrow on all the streaming platforms. From my upcoming record, At Night in the Dark, this is Cold in July. Across the floor in the night, I go to lock the door. I got a lie to tell that you may never want to hear. Love's lost, love is found in this town that brings all of our hearts right down. You don't know how it feels, 'cause when it's light and I can't fall asleep, and these wounds, they just bleed so deep that it's true. Even if we don't try, it's so cold in July. I've done the wrong thing so many times I've lost track that we might never make it back. And I'm alright with that. Love was ours, but it's so fleeting. How can we feel so damn deeply until we feel nothing at all? 'Cause when it's dark and I'm alone without you in the dust, there's not one thing that I wouldn't do. Even when it's goodbye, it's so cold in July. wasn't a lie. It's so cold in July. And that was Cold in July off my upcoming record, A Night in the Dark. The new track will be available starting tomorrow on all the streaming platforms, and I really hope you guys are going to enjoy it. We'll definitely be talking more about the song as we go along in this series, but now it's time to get down to business, folks. Today we have a very, very special guest join us all the way from up north in Niagara, Canada. I met this gentleman at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, New Jersey in January of this year. We had a little bit of communication on Facebook, I think, for a couple months leading up, but I saw him. I was at a show. I was playing with Bobby Mahoney on the Weaklings bill, and this gentleman was in the crowd, him and his son, big fans of Bobby, big fans of the music and the New Jersey scene. This man and his son Evan were in all the way from Niagara for the Light of Day Music Festival in Asbury Park, where I was concluding my tour. For those that don't know, Light of Day is a festival that takes place not only in New Jersey, but all around the world, and they raise millions of dollars for Parkinson's research and many other amazing charities and hospitals through the power that is music. Everything that, this podcast and everything that really I try to stand about is music and the impact that it can have. And that's what Light of Day for me is all about. David has done so much, not only for Light of Day through the Canadian wing, he's the operator of everything that happens with Light of Day in Canada, but for the music scenes in Canada and in New Jersey as well. We got a chance to talk after the set that I played with Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son, a name that has come up multiple times on this podcast. And I remember had a great discussion about music, our love of Asbury, and of course the mutual love of the boss, Bruce Springsteen. And that night, backstage at the Paramount, we got to watch Springsteen in action with Joe Grishecki and the House Rockers band. And we had the best view in the house. We got to stand alongside, each other and watch this show. Bruce returning to the Paramount for the first time in 6 years. What an unbelievable treat. Even now, it doesn't even feel like it really happened. Since that time, David has been such a great friend to me and my music. He's put me on 2 Light of Day Canada events with more events just around the corner. For all you at home looking for streaming services, there's a lot of stuff coming your way. He's been a huge anchor for me during the making of my record, and I'm I'm beyond grateful for his friendship. David's youngest son, Evan, is a 16-year-old phenom, singer-songwriter, and a close personal friend of mine as well. You supporters of the podcast might remember hearing Evan's single, All of These People, in episode 2 of our first season. If not, you can go back and check it out. Tonight, you'll be hearing some of Evan's latest singles, If I Were a Rock Star and Land of Opportunity. 2 songs that when you hear them, you will never guess are written, arranged, and vocalized by a guy at such a young age. Evan is well on his way to a huge future in the music business, and I'm glad to say that I got a chance to find his music early on in that process. So, without further ado, I want to welcome my first guest of the new season, my good friend, the great David Rotella, to the Local Sounds podcast. David, so cool to have you. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Taylor, first of all, what an intro. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. And it's an honor to be your first guest, my friend. I really, really appreciate you asking me.
Of course, man. Yeah, I mean everything I say, and this music thing is important, to you and me and so many out there, and just how difficult 2020 has been for so many people. One of the things that I have so much appreciation for is the relationship that we struck up, and really the last time the live music was rolling.
Yeah, it almost seems like years and years ago that we were together, and it was really only 9 months ago that we were in Asbury Park. It just feels like forever.
And what an amazing, if that was the last time that you got to be out for live music, it didn't really get much better than that, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
What a week.
We left on a high note, that's for sure.
What a week. I think when I was leaving Asbury Park last time, it was on a Sunday, right after they did the Bruce brunch thing and the convention hall. And I was leaving. I had lost my key the night before, and Schindler got me a new key. And I think Evan was playing with Dylan that day at the Stone Pony.
Yes, yeah, and then he was lucky enough to bring up two of his heroes, Danny Gochnar and from the House Rockers, and of course you mentioned him already, Bobby Mahoney. Bobby Mahoney to Evan is Bruce Springsteen to me. So it was a big thrill for him to have Bobby join him for Light of Day and Pink Cadillac. It was great.
Yeah, Bobby. It's I don't put it far off. Bobby to me is one of the real rock stars that we got in our group. So yeah, it's amazing. So let me ask you this, David, with having a family, having the Light of Day thing, having your work, having a son that's a musician, what has the pandemic really been like for you in particular? What if the highs, the lows, when you look back on it, the year's almost over, what would you say how would you look back on the whole thing?
Well, I have to say though, I'm pretty blessed. When I look around both of our countries, and you see the devastation and in a lot of people's lives, I haven't had that. My business is actually thriving due to the need for web services during this time, and with that, when it came to Evan and his music. He had a lot of shows booked. It was going to be his first summer. Last summer, he got a taste of playing on patios and doing shows at outdoor festivals. And he was starting to really find his groove. And we already had many shows booked, and we were very hopeful he was going to get some. Weekend gigs at these great patios and friends of ours down here, and then of course that changed. But he's young and he doesn't need the money. There's artists out there and musicians that are struggling, and that's their livelihood. But it was a little disappointing. But we did what we could, and just like with my business, you had to think outside the box and try to figure out where to go and pivot a little bit. And we started doing online shows, and first few were a little bumpy, and as we got into it, first we thought this is going to last a couple weeks, maybe a month. Next thing you know, we're on episode 10, and we're 3 months in, and we've been buying equipment and turn the house into a studio. But for Evan, one of the best things that happened was. Though he didn't have the opportunity to get out and play as much, he spent, and I know you've done the same, he spent a lot of time writing, and he's written some incredible songs over the summer and into the fall that he might not have done had he been busy doing other things. So with that part of the business, he's done really well, and that's been great. And his storytelling from his shows, that's really come along. So he's actually grown during the COVID. Now, when it comes to Light of Day, that's another story. That's we had our big show booked for 2 weekends ago. And it was going to be at the arena in St. Catharines, and we had great Canadian country rock artist Tim Hicks, and last time he played there, he sold out, and we knew this was going to be a sellout. And we had a great lineup, and Evan was actually going to play his first ever arena show. Our friends Jason Heath had mentioned they were going to bring him up for a couple songs, and so he was stoked about that. But when it came to the actual charity, we lost out on possible $100K that we would have raised for our charity, so that kind of hurt. And so again, we started thinking of things to do and what could we do, and I started a Songwriters Circle show that you participated in, thankfully. Thank you, sir. And
of course.
we raised a few $1,000, but more than that, we kept the awareness alive for Light of Day and got to bring out a lot of our good friends to play. Willie Nile, Joe Durso, yourself, Bobby Mahoney, people from Canada, Miss Emily, and we even had Rusty Young from...
Huge. Huge. Well, honestly, a huge honor. And you mentioned so many things that I want to touch on. For one, the online shows have been incredible. Not only Evan's shows. I just was watching last night. Great show. But the songwriters circle shows, and now the private shows. The ticketed shows that you guys have coming up with so many great artists. Jake Thistle's one that jumps to mind. You guys have really made the live shows online, the virtual shows, an experience, in my opinion. But not only that, you've definitely kept the awareness going for Light of Day. And there's so many different aspects of scenes to where people got shut down, and then you don't hear from them, and then they go out of they go through times, venues go out of business, things like that, and they don't have a solid way of keeping up with their base. And you guys have definitely done a good job of reminding people what's going on.
Well, we've tried, and one thing Bob Benjamin told me a long time ago: it's not about how much money you raise; it's about how much awareness you raise. And so when you can't make the money, as long as you're making people aware of Parkinson's and bringing Parkinson's to the forefront, so people understand that there's a need for research and care and money for that. That's just as important. So that's why we do it, and that's why we try to keep it going, because there's going to be a day. I mean, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we will get back out on the boards, and we will be doing these shows again. And we just want to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and that'll be an amazing time. Honestly, all of us are looking forward to that. Now, plenty more to talk about with Light of Day. Plenty more to talk about with Evan's music. But what I really wanted to go back to was kind of the beginning of long before you had a son that wrote music, long before you were working with some of these guys and had Light of Day Canada. You were a kid yourself, listening to music, being impacted, feeling that we all feel, that music, is transformational. It's soul shaking, And so what can you remember, David, as the first time that you heard a record that really had an impact on you, or a song, or where were you? How did it make you feel?
Well, that's a loaded question, because there's so many of them. I mean, my father was huge into music. He managed a band. He wrote songs, and so music was a part of my life from a very, very young age. Bruce in The Wish, he talks about singing Beatle records for his parents, for his mom, and my dad used to do the same type of thing with me in the living room with friends over, and the Stones would come on, or CCR, and I'd be up there dancing and singing. So I always remember that. But my first record, my dad and mom bought me a. Well, you're too young to remember this, but they had these old turntables that actually you closed the top on them. They were really cool, and you opened them up and put your record on and closed the top and dropped the needle. And Johnny Rivers, Rockin' Pneumonia. I'll never forget. That was my first 45. That was
great, Johnny Rivers.
Yeah, it was my own, and that was my very own. Still, it's not one of my favorite songs of all time, but it's one of my favorite memories of all time. And actually, I think the Boss does a cover of that somewhere on one of the bootlegs I have. So, that I recall that. But if you really want to look at the impact of music for me, and what I remember the most, I was in grade 7 music class, and I was a big Kiss fan at the time. And our teacher said, "Can you I want everybody to bring in your favorite album. We're going to play your favorite song from that album." So I brought in Kiss Destroyer. That was 1977, and I had Destroyer, and I was going to play my 2.5-minute Beth for everybody, because it was just such a beautiful song, and I was crazy about Kiss. And the girl that went before me, no, actually, she went after me. So I played Beth, and I was all proud, and I sat down, and she had this white album with this white guy on the front and an African-American man on the back, and it looked really cool, and I'd never seen it before. And she put the needle on the record, and she played a song called Jungle Land, and that was it. Whew. My life.
What changed. A moment, right? What a moment.
Well, we went from a 2-minute song to whatever it is, a 10-minute song. And the funny thing is, not everybody in the class felt the same way, but that moment was it for me. I saw the future of rock and roll, and it was in Cindy Brandt's hands, and I said, I have to get this record. And because my dad was an avid record collector, it was really easy to go home and say, Dad, I have an album I need to buy. And we ran down to the local record store, and, as they say, the rest is history. And then I followed that muse the rest of my life. And there's been many, many, many other moments, but that to me was the definitive moment that really shaped, what I was going to listen to and the rest of my life. And, you talked about it in your intro. There we are in the wings watching that man sing last January, with Joe Bruschecki and the House Rockers, and sometimes I pinch myself, and I remember that little kid in grade 7 music class, just finding out about that guy. So it's been a cool journey, and to meet him and to have spoken to him, and for my son to be on stage with him several times. It's not lost on me how blessed I am. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jungle Land. My earliest memory of seeing Jungle Land, I don't even know. I'd have to think back to see if I've ever even seen him play that live. Maybe I have. I'm not sure, but I know that the first memory of seeing it was in that DVD of the Live in New York City.
Yeah.
And unbelievable, all the power that Clarence had, and just the cohesiveness of the band. The first thing I remember that I'll always remember is how great the piano made me feel, that opening piano riff.
Right?
Roy
Seriously,
Bittan,
yep.
really says a lot for me in that band, for sure.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because, we both know Jared very well, but we're, huge Clarence Clemens fan, and I've seen him with with the Red Bank Rockers back when I was a kid, and I've always loved him, and, they're synonymous, Bruce and Clarence. But you're 100% right. Roy's piano, there and then Into Darkness, and heck, actually, if you listen to Bob Seger's Fire Inside, when he starts off there, you knew right away that's Roy, right? You're like, wow, it's Roy Bittan.
Roy sounds just like Roy,
sound. Yeah, he has a sound, and you're right. That whole there was something romantic about that album too, right? When you sat down and you listened to Backstreets, and I was a kid.
The opening of Thunder Road,
Oh, on Thunder Road, and just all of it, and it was transformational, and in rock and roll, in and of itself, that was a transformational record. I mean, it changed everything. It brought rock and roll back to where it needed to be, which. Very thankful to Mr. Springsteen for that.
Absolutely. Well, what a powerful night seeing him, backstage do his thing, If you're just joining us right now on the Local Sounds podcast, my name is Taylor James Davis. I'm with the great David Rotella out of Canada. Now, David, first live concert experience, you got to tell me about it.
This is funny you say that, because I'm sitting in my little music room office at my house, and you mentioned you might bring up that, and my first show, I'll explain to you what that meant after, but my first show was Foghat and the Outlaws. My cousin my cousin was into some heavier music when I was young. He's older than me. He was about 8 years older than me, and he was very influential. He got me into people like Alice Cooper when I was young, and Foghat and Uriah Heep, quite different than what my father was listening to, but I became a huge Foghat fan, and we got to see them. And the reason I mentioned my office, I was going through all my old tickets, and my ticket was $6.50.
Time has changed, David.
At the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium. But I also have a program, and I'm getting old, Taylor. I'm a lot older than you, and I have a program from Elton John in 1977.
Oh,
and I did see
legendary.
Elton, and I did see him, and I remember that show. And if that's the case, it was actually my first show, because it was 77 and Foghat was 78. So it was one of those two. But I was a big Elton John fan, still am. Bruce took over everybody in 77, 78 for me. But before Bruce, there was Kiss, Foghat, and actually Jackson Browne came before Bruce for me, because I had a friend whose brother was a big Jackson Browne fan.
Yeah, I always talk on stage. I had to find Jackson's music really on my own, because I don't recall my parents ever playing Jackson music. My mom, of course, knew he was, because everyone, in the 70s and 80s, if you were a woman growing up, you probably wanted to sleep with Jackson Browne,
That's right.
So the women knew about Jackson Browne, but my parents never played him. So when I discovered the music on my own, it was great. But then to discover, Evan and Jake, are playing these songs like These Days and, Running on Empty. It was amazing to find people even younger than me that were into Jackson's music.
Well, I think Jake Thistle might be an illegitimate child of Jackson Browne's. I'm not sure.
He said something the other day that some lady talked backstage to Jackson recently, and Jackson was talking about how he follows Jake's YouTube page or something like that. I don't know if you saw that. That was like on social media.
Well, Jake actually told me, because Jake's going to be on the Songs and Stories show that you mentioned, and he might check it out. So I mean, that's pretty
so
cool.
cool.
I mean,
so cool.
Jackson's yeah, it is. I mean, Jake's a cut above the rest. That man's a very, very, very talented 16-year-old. I'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. That's Jake Thistle that we're talking about. If you're listening, go check out Jake Thistle's music. I got to ask you how you got involved with, obviously we see the importance of music, and you grew up in the area that you live now, or you grew up somewhere different?
No, born and raised in Niagara Falls, live in Niagara Falls. I headed out to Toronto to university for a few years and headed right back. So I love this town. I've been here, and I think this is where I'll remain. My hometown.
So all of your music influence that you're talking about coming up in Niagara, how does that lead you to New Jersey, to Light of Day? How do you get involved with Light of Day and start everything that you guys done there in Canada?
Well, it's kind of funny. I knew of Light of Day. I mean, being a huge Springsteen fan, I had every bootleg album and CD you could imagine over the years, and I had the Light of Day shows, but I had never been. And a good friend of mine, Mike Minervini, here in Niagara Falls, he'd go down there. He'd actually met Bruce once, and he'd go down there. And one August, he gave me a call. I was actually doing Joe Grusheki's website. Our company was doing Joe Grusheki's website. I had bumped into Joe at a show, and we chatted. And so Joe and I became friendly. He wasn't just a client, but so Mike called and said, "Hey, I was talking to Joe Durso, and we were, he was mentioning we should put on a show in Niagara Falls." And I said, "Well, I've never put on a concert before. I've done events for the old job I had, but I've never put on a concert." He's like, "Come on, let's give it a shot." And so, we met with a local musician, Rick Rose, and another friend of ours, Mark Matthews, is a comedian, and they helped us out, and we put together a show, and we brought in Willie Nile and Joe Durso and Joe Grushecki and the House Rockers. We even had Ron Sexsmith from Canada, and we put together a really good show.
Not a light bill, David.
Yeah, I know. Not a bad way to start, right? So
not at all.
And it was in my old high school auditorium, so that was kind of a kick. It was, I'm on a stage where, we had our pep rallies, and I'd run up for our football team, right? And so it was kind of cool. Here are all these artists playing at my old high school, and we raised a few $100. It was a very snowy day in December, so we only had about 400 or 500 people out, but it was a good start, and I got to understand the cause a lot more. I got to know Joe Durso and Joe Grushecky, just wonderful people, and they became our mentors, and we did it again the next year, and it got bigger, and we moved it to a theater, and it got bigger, and it just kept growing, and we kept bringing in different artists and raising more money, and over the 11 years that we did it, we've had a little bit of a hiatus, due to COVID and a few other things, but we raised, close to $500,000, and we're going to continue the fight.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Sometimes I got to pinch myself that it all happened because, sometimes you're backstage, in the dressing rooms before the show, and, everybody's there, and you look around and you go, how did I get here? Steve Earle's sitting in the corner, and Grushecki's over there talking to John Cafferty, and you're like, how did this all happen? But
wow. Well,
yeah, but it's
coming
a great
from a place
cause,
of listening to these guys,
Well, that's been the thing that I've benefited from. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into Light of Day. We got a great committee and a great board here in Canada, from Gord Hunter and Sammy Grasso and everybody that's pitched in over the years and helped us run shows. It's a lot of work, but one of the benefits was getting to know these guys and hanging out with them. I mean, I was on the phone today with John Cafferty for an hour just talking music, and because he's going to be playing at our February event, and he was a hero of mine. I mean, I played his music when I was a DJ, and here I am, I've gone out for dinner with the guy. Like it's just cool, and I'm not saying that, it's not boastful. Please don't think that. I just mean it's, as a music nut, as a music fan, and obsessed with some of these artists over the years, and then they've become friends. It's cool, and that's what music does, though, right? And that's why I love Light of Day, and I love causes. I mean, I'm doing something right now with Joe Durso for Why Hunger. We're putting together a video for Sunday, and they're just good-hearted people doing good things. And once you get in that circle, it just feels good. And the benefit is you get to meet some pretty cool people along the way.
I didn't hear much that you said after you said you were talking to John Cafferty for an hour today, because John is such a big hero of mine, and I got the chance to talk to him for about 20 minutes. It was, June of 2019. We rushed back from Philly, Jared Clemens and I, after our last show of the tour, and we had tickets to the show. So we rushed back. We run in as they're starting on the dark side. Like, I don't know how we made it on time. I drove way too fast. I made sure that we got there on time. And at the end, we were able to talk to him for, I thought it was going to be 2 minutes, but he gave us a lot of time. And I just picked his brain about songwriting. What a great guy. What a surreal moment to be talking,
That's
to
awesome.
the guy that has such a big influence. My dad had both those Eddie and the Cruisers movies, VHS tapes that we used to just, play an immense amount, wear those things out,
Yep.
I want to talk more about Light of Day. I want to ask you some more questions, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to play one of Evan's songs, if that's all right.
No, hey, anytime you want to play Evan
Of
Rotella,
course.
it's okay with me.
Just making sure. So this song that I'm going to play with Evans, I'm going to have you do a little setup for it, and then we're going to give it a play. This song, man, what a great song. I listened to it a couple times when it came out. I was like, oh, that's a good song. And then I let it marinate, and I listened back to it, recently. What an incredible song. And for somebody his age, that's what I just keep going back to with him and Jake, is just, I'm a couple years from being 30, and, I think the stride for me it hit late with writing the type of songs that I envisioned in my head and actually made those songs happen. But I hear Jake and I hear Evan. What an incredible song. If I Were a Rock Star. Tell me a little bit about that before we play it.
Well, I'll tell you Evan's story about that, because it's cool. I always say to Evan, he writes some really, really good songs, and I'm biased, of course. I'm his dad, but I love what he writes. But I always say to him, it's like Tom Waits. Like, why are you writing all sad songs all the time? Okay, you got to do something a little upbeat, right? So he decided one day, okay, I'm gonna have fun with a song. I want to, he always says in his shows, I wrote this because he's a big John Hyatt fan and Todd Snyder, and those guys have a lot of fun in many of their songs, and he wanted to do something. Oh yeah, and that's the thing. He's influenced by some really cool songwriters, and he just wanted to have a little bit of fun with it, and so he just envisioned what it would be like if he was a rock star, and he threw in some of his favorite things like LeBron James, and he was very angry with Kawhi Leonard for leaving the Raptors at the time. So I'm
sure all of Canada was closed down for a couple of days, I feel like.
Yes, we were, and we're still mad. But so he just wanted to have fun with the song. And then one day I came home and he said, Dad, you got to listen to this song. What do you think? And I'm like, wow. I think I like it. I like the imagery. I like the amount of fun he had with it. And I don't know what version you're playing now, but just recently Danny Gochnar and Joe Monroe took it into the studio. We had it demoed up here by Paul Gigliotti and did a good job. And then those guys added the drums and guitars and piano and just turned it into something well, I don't even think Evan envisioned, but
such a big song.
Yeah, and it became such a good song. We're proud of him. It's a great song, and actually, just so you know, we're working on a video of that in the spring. We were going to do it in the fall, and then the videographer couldn't get to it, so we're gonna start that in the spring.
I believe you can get this newer version. You can get on all the streaming platforms. I believe I got mine off of Apple Music. Is that correct?
Yeah. You can get it on all the streaming services, and you can just go to evanrotella.com, check out all his audio. So
beautiful. Make sure you guys do that. Follow Evan Rotella, Rotella. Right now we're going to listen to it. Once again, this is the Local Sounds Podcast. My name is Taylor Davis. We're joined by special guest David Rotella, and here's some music for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is If I Were a Rock Star by Evan Rotella.
Well, if I was a rock star, I just wouldn't care. I'd buy a mansion in the hills and hang out with Cher. I do cameos in movies that no one ever sees. Be a guest star in a game show that's airing on TV. Vacation with the Stones, Blink 182, throw a week-long parties, yeah, and you can come too. I travel across the world in only a day. Do a show for a crowd that hangs on every word I say. Oh, if I was a rock star, they'd probably make a documentary about life behind the scenes. Get tons of famous people just to talk about me. Praise my success, they criticize my fails. They'll scream out for products that they want me to unveil. I'd walk around with bodyguards that never talk to me, so I can look like I'm protected when they see me on TV. Show my face on the Jumbotron when I'm courtside in LA. Catch me whisper to LeBron, tell Kawhi I should've stayed. Oh, if I was a rock star. Oh, if I was a rock star. Talk about me, praise my success, they criticize my fails. They'll scream out for products that they want me to unveil. I'd probably be respected cause I always hit a blast, making me move me crying cause life goes by too fast. Whatever happened to parties on my mansion in the hills? Been years since then, but I can feel it still. If I was a rock star, probably make a documentary about life behind the scenes. Get tons of famous people that talk about me, praise my success and they criticize my fails. Ask me about new projects that they want me to unveil. I'd probably be respected cause I always had a blast, making me move me crying cause life goes by too fast. Whatever happened to my parties, my mansion in the hills? We've since then moved to Buffalo, we root for the Bills. If I was a rock star. Oh, if I was a rock star. Oh, if I was a rock star.
That was If I Were a Rock Star by Evan Rotella. You're listening to the Local Sounds Podcast Season 2, Episode 1. I'm Taylor Davis, singer-songwriter here in Miami, Florida. I have a special guest with me today all the way from Niagara, Canada, on the phone, Mr. David Rotella. And that was just If I Were a Rock Star by his son, Evan. Make sure you go check out Evan's music. We're going to play another song before it's all over with. But I wanted to ask you some more questions, and then I know we're going to talk about the new record at some point. But I really want to ask you, one of the first things I thought when I met you was, man, this guy has worked with all the people that you were mentioning just earlier, before this, before we played Evan's song. The Joe Grishekis, the Willie Niles, the Joe Dursos, Johnny Pisano, Bruce, putting Bruce's name on the table. You worked with all these great artists, in that moment that you're talking about, when you're backstage, you're looking around, John Cafferty's talking to Grishecki and stuff like that. What is it like for you as a guy that, loves music, not only with step outside of what you do for Light of Day, but just a lover of music? Your son's in the arts now. Your son is one of those guys. What's it like to be, when you step outside of it and you look, you're that young guy that, grew up loving Poco and loving all these great bands, and now you're surrounded by guys that are of that generation. What's that like for you?
It is surreal, and like I said earlier, sometimes I pinch myself, and again, it's not lost on me how blessed I am, because it's music has been a huge part of my life since I was a little kid, and my dad had his heroes, and I had mine, and then I've been able to stand side by side with several of them. But what I find, even more interesting is that a lot of the guys that I've gotten to know through this circle is just how great people they are, just how big of hearts they have, and what they always say don't meet your heroes, right? Because it could disappoint you. Well, I met some of mine, and first of all, it wasn't disappointing. But some of those heroes, I got later on in life, the Joe Dursos, the Joe Grishekis. I was a Grishecki fan before I met him with Light of Day. Like, I was American Babylon. And, I got to meet him, and what a great guy. And so, yes, it's surreal, but it also opened my eyes. These guys they're just guys like me and you. They love music. They got big hearts. That's why they're doing the things they're doing for the causes that they're doing it with. And I guess my answer is it's just very surreal. I pinch myself a lot when I take a look around. I mean, I had Rusty Young on my show, and I was so hard not to be a fanboy during that show, because I've been listening to Poco since I was like 10. And here he is, the man on the lap steel guitar, chatting with him backstage before our online show, but getting ready for the show. And now I do their website, the Poco website, or Danima does. But so I've gotten to know his wife more than Rusty. But it's just really cool. It's been a nice benefit of working with Light of Day, but it's also. It's been very eye-opening just to see, these guys behind the scenes, and to see what great guys are. I mean, when you see Bruce Springsteen, he is who you wanted him to be. He's, I don't know him. I don't think he's just there's that Dave Rotella guy, but, we've seen each other enough. But when you're backstage, he says hi, and he's just kind, and he talks to everybody, and there he is talking to Willie, and there he is with, Joe. We brought a friend of ours Frankie Spatafor, who has cancer, and he's got pancreatic cancer, and actually we didn't think he'd make it to this point. He's still here, but we brought him to New Jersey last year, and Danny Gochnar and Joe Grishecki got him upstairs backstage to meet Bruce. Bruce was so nice to him, and you're like, that's the guy. I'm so glad he is what I thought he was, and I think that's one of the greatest things that I've gotten out of this is these guys are what I hope they'd be. And you mentioned John Cafferty, one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet. Yeah, honestly, it's really overwhelming when you're in a situation like, I was backstage in 19 and 20 for the finale show at Light of Day Jersey, and you're seeing all these people, and you're thinking about the impact that these people have had on other folks, and then you get to share their energy with them, in a place that is really the home of musicians, backstage, and to share that energy with these guys is just, it's incredible, because how much impact they've had on so many people. Well, and that's the right word, actually. You came up with the right word, energy. They give off an energy, and they give it to the crowd, but they give it backstage, because that's just who they are. And I've got a really cool example. Sometimes you wonder, when you're talking to some of them, are they really paying attention? Who are you to them, right? Maybe they're just going through the motions. And one day I was having drinks with John Cafferty. Actually, I think we were having dinner. He was playing over the river, and we were just chatting about stuff. And I'm listening to him. He's listening to me. And you wonder, did he take any of your stories in? I took every one of his in. I probably know them by verbatim, right? So, but so you're talking away, and then you go away. And the next day we went to see him. Took the family across the river to the casino, and we saw John Cafferty at Beaver Brown. Right in the middle of the show, he stops and he starts telling a story how my son just won the championship in hockey and made how many saves, and I'm like, oh, he was really paying attention. This guy was actually listening. He's telling the whole crowd, right? And the crowd's cheering. You're like, wow.
He was paying attention. That's beautiful, you know.
Yeah, like but it was just great to know that it wasn't just one way; it was two ways. And then, he's just he's just one of those guys that just have a great big heart. But they're all that way, and it's been great to see. And I always joke around about sports and music. I've got some pretty bad sports teams, and you see all the stuff that goes on in sports, and that's why I'm a bigger music fan. There's a lot more heart in the music, that's for sure.
Yeah, and there's definitely something synonymous between music and sports. They say, I've heard multiple times, they say musicians want to be sports stars and sports stars want to be musicians.
And some of them do both, eh? And there's quite a few of them that do both.
Bernie Williams, Williams comes to mind right away.
Yeah.
I know you're a Red Sox guy, so you probably don't like that name.
No, I don't mind. Listen, I'm one of the few Red Sox fans that like the Yankees because I got a big soft spot because of my dad. So. Yeah.
I'm not much of a baseball guy. I hate to tell that to you because I know you're a passionate baseball fan. My dad is a big Yankees fan, but I'm not really, not really into it that much. I'm more of a basketball guy, being from Indiana. Basketball, rules.
Oh, there you go. That's right. Home of the Hoosiers. That's right.
What was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you about, in correlation to all these folks, that you've been around for 20 years right now, 20 years?
Yeah, about 15 to 20, yeah.
Yeah. What is it now you see your son is becoming one of these guys? What is that experience like for a father who, you're not a musician? What is it like to see your son becoming one of these guys?
Well, I always say I was a DJ for 20 years. I was a wannabe musician, and I didn't have the talent. My son seemingly has it, but it's cool. But I don't see him in that way. Now, the funny thing was, not too long ago, our friend Danny Gochnar from the House Rockers, he had said something that really struck a chord. He said that Evan's become one of their peers, and I thought, wow, I never really thought about it that way. But now he's played on the Stone Pony stage twice. He's played Light of Day. He's been playing around here. It's really cool to watch him grow, to watch his music evolve. Where it's going to go from here, I don't know. But he's grown up in it. He's grown up with some incredible mentors. From Light of Day and people that he calls friends, people that have been at our home, Joe Durso, Joe Grishecki, Danny Gaka, all these guys, and he's grown up with them. And, obviously Bobby Mahoney is his fave. I mean, he looks up to Bobby and he's played with Bobby. And last year, Bobby did a show. It would have been a year ago last weekend, did a show here, and Evan opened up, and then they surprised him, and they all got up and joined him, and they backed him for Pink Cadillac. I don't think he came off that cloud for 2 or 3 months, right? So and it was just cool to see that he's progressed to the point where they felt comfortable to play with him, not just doing it because it's Dave's kid, is because they wanted to, and they felt like he was a peer. And I thought that was cool because at the time he was 15 years old, and myself, I've learned a great deal from the Mahonies themselves, because they're great people, but Bob and what they've done to support Bobby and how they've watched Bobby grow up. I mean, Bobby started in our lobby at Light of Day, I think maybe 6 here in Canada. He was just a kid like Evan, playing in the lobby, and everybody was like, who the hell's that kid? He's good. And then he graduated to the stage, to the main stage, and now he's become a fixture at Light of Day Canada. So I look at that, and I that's my hope for Evan, is that he can follow in Bobby's footsteps, and me and my wife can follow in Bob and Ann's footsteps and be those type of parents for him.
Absolutely. And you know what? Bobby has an amazing way of, he gets a chance at that energy, that stage energy at the Pony and other places, and the energy of playing with such a sensational band, which is, very hard to come by, and he has always been a person to share that energy with others around him, and you said Evan was on a 3-month, high from that, and I still haven't come down from playing the pony for 4 minutes in January, So, and that all of that's thanks to Bobby. So yeah, shout out to Bobby Mahoney. If anyone paid attention to the first episode of season 1 of the podcast, we played Bobby Mahoney, the Seventh Son. Should have called you up last night, so make sure you go check out their music. But so, what do you think is next for Light of Day? You were talking about doing the show in February. Where do you see the future going for Light of Day in the next 5 years, let's say?
Well, I think it was Joe Durso or Willie who said, we want to kick Parkinson's ass and then move on to the next one. So we'd love to be a part of the cure and continue doing it, and we will continue doing it. I mean, sometimes you get tired. It's busy. It's a lot of work. You've got other things, and things like this, COVID, kind of kick you in the butt, and you think, are we ever going to be able to get back on track? But there's the underlying theme of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and I see us continuing even beyond a cure. We give some of our money to Parkinson's as well, to cancer as well, cancer research, because we have a lot of folks that have been on our committee and that have been affected by cancer in their families, and myself included. And so we'll continue doing it because I believe that music heals, and it's one of those things that brings us all together for a cause. And I learned that when I first saw Live Aid. I was about 18 when Live Aid was on, and I was in awe of what Bob Geldof did and how he brought everybody together for that one cause for AIDS. And it was incredible. It was amazing. And I thought, wow, that's what we're here to do, right? I mean, that's not what drove me to Light of Day. I don't want to get me wrong, but when I got involved in Light of Day, I was like, yeah, I get it. That's why I was doing it. And that's what we're going to do, an online show. It's actually going to be 2 days, February 19th, February 20th, because we got so many great people that want to be a part of it, including yourself. And we'll do that for now, and hopefully we get out of this soon and we can get back into the theaters and the clubs and start doing some live shows, because I want to. Like I said, we had a home run waiting for us with Tim Hicks, and hopefully we can get that momentum back and get a big show here and get you up to Niagara Falls, Canada, to play some shows, my friend.
That would be amazing. That'd be amazing. I'm looking. That's a thing I keep in my head to keep things going on down days. So I appreciate that. If you're just joining us, everybody, this is Taylor Davis with the Local Sounds Podcast. We have special guest David Rotella of Light of Day Canada. I want you guys to go to Google, look up Light of Day Canada, go to their website, check out what's going on. If you can donate, it would be amazing. Check out their shows. They always have shows going on. You can check out Evan Rotella's music, but make sure you check out and do your research on Light of Day, all the great things that David and the folks are doing in Canada and the things that are being done in New Jersey and plenty of other places across the world where Light of Day has now become a staple of the culture. We're going to play another song of Evan's, and we're going to come back and talk to David for a little bit more. This next song, David, one of my favorite songs of quarantine. You were talking about slower songs and sad songs. I've gotten told many times, what's with the sad songs? You're a happy guy. What the hell are you doing? And I go back to this quote I heard Don Henley say. He said that he heard from Trisha Yearwood. She said, "I love sad songs. They make me happy." And, that's really my kind of take on it. But Evan's Land of Opportunity, what a great song. And the line about you had to learn to survive, and I love lines that people think all the time, but they never say them. And this is a great song. Tell me a little bit about this before I play this, David.
Well, first of all, I have to say, hopefully we get a chance to talk about your music, because I've become a big fan, and you know that.
Well, thank you so much.
So I appreciate all the kind words you give to my son, but I got to give you props. And hopefully after the song I can come back and talk about yours. But Land of Opportunity, I don't know where it came from. I mean, again, he was 14 years old when he wrote it. Actually, I apologize. It was this past summer, so he was 15. And again, he called me up at work and said, "I got something I want to play for you. What do you think?" And I came home and wow, where did these lyrics come from? I didn't think like that at 15. I didn't have those odds. But I do know, and you probably know this too. He's heavily influenced by Brian Fallon and by Bruce, and he likes the Nebraska type music. He loved Western stars. He loves the acoustic storytelling, songwriting part of music, and he wanted to write something. He says this in his shows. He wanted to write something that wasn't about him at all, wasn't about any experience he ever had. It was more, something he got from just making up a story and thinking of a story and creating that story and putting it on paper. And I think he did pretty good. It was his first crack at it, and he pulled out the harmonica and added that to it. And I think it came out really good. It was one of the best storytelling songs that he's written. And now he's starting to kind of veer off that way. His music and his songwriting has evolved a lot more, and he's starting to do that. And I must say it's kind of along the same vein as your new song, that I don't know. It's very Nebraska-esque. If
I think that record, I see a lot that record has tremendous impact on the young guys. Evan, Jake Thistle, and I talk about Nebraska a lot. Marcos Cabanas, who is another great musician out of Amsterdam, and his new record is actually called "From the Town of Lincoln, Nebraska." So,
oh my God, really?
Yeah, and he just,
there you go.
It's had a huge impact on me. I would definitely put it right up there. But two things I want to mention before I play Land of Opportunity. One, the vibe I got, I think I told you from the very beginning, the way the harmonica is played with the guitar is a lot like that Doolin Dalton song off the Eagles' Desperado. Really immediately jumped in my head as one of the most underrated Eagles songs ever. But just Bruce was saying that the storyteller's job is to step in those shoes, and try to have empathy in the way that you write. And you can definitely hear that in this song. So people, make sure, like I said, check out Evan Rotella. You guys heard earlier tonight, If I Were a Rock Star. We're going to play this one. Go check it out. Give it a download. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Evan Rotella with Land of Opportunity.
I grew up by a river, 10 minutes out of Hog. My daddy sold drugs in a bank parking lot. They threw him in jail when I was 16. Moved in with my aunt and her young daughter Jean. Now my mom left my dad when I was 13. She wanted more than he could provide. She didn't hesitate and she never looked back. She never even said goodbye. Now life around here was as plain as could be. You go to school all day, come home and sleep. You learn to make do with the things that you got, or sell dope in a bank parking lot. So you take what you got and you learn to survive. You hope to grow old, enjoy it, then die in a land of opportunity, so wild and so free. Opportunity ain't available to me. Well, my sister got married about a year or two ago. Would've gotten her a gift, but I didn't even know. She moved to East Nashville when she was 21, with an older guy and his 3-year-old son. Now most of the time there ain't nothing much to do. You sit in your room all all tangled up in blue. Minutes turn to hours and hours turn to days, till you wake up one day all tired and gray. So you take what you got and you learn to survive. You hope to grow old, enjoy it, then die in land of opportunity, so wild and so free. Opportunity ain't available to me. I grew up by a river, 10 minutes out of Hawk. My daddy sold drugs in a bank parking lot.
We are back, folks. Local Sounds Podcast. This is Taylor Davis, singer-songwriter here in Miami. I have special guest, my good brother David Rotella, all the way up in Niagara, Canada, from Light of Day, Canada. So far, we've talked about music, of course, music. We talked about checking out David's son, Evan. Make sure you guys go and listen to Evan's new music, his older music. Tonight you guys heard If I Were a Rock Star, and you just heard Land of Opportunity. Go check out what Evan is doing. And now David, has some questions for me about the song and the record. Earlier tonight we played Cold in July, and David, you were one of the first people I sent it to. I've only sent it to a handful of people early, but I wanted to get your feedback, so.
Well, it's not a surprise to you. I'm a big fan. I became a fan right away, and I was listening to you. I think prior to Light of Day, before we met each other, I had heard a few of your songs, and I saw you up there with Bobby. And after we got to know you, I really dug deep and got to listen to your music, and I loved what you were doing. I really did. But what I've seen over the last 4 or 5 months, the music that you've written and your last few songs, you've grown so much. Your songwriting has evolved, and you can see that it's becoming what I'm assuming influenced you as a singer-songwriter. So my question is, who is your biggest influence when it comes to songwriting? And let's take Bruce out of the equation. Other than Bruce, who would be your biggest influences?
It's got to be Dylan. It's got to be Dylan for sure, because I always talk. I have two, stories of my come up in music, which was really when I was, raised. I would hear music in my dad's car when I would ride around with him, and then music in my mom's car when I'd ride around with her. And my dad would play, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and he'd play the Eagles, and he'd play Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson, all the country and the country rock. And my mom, I'd get in her car, she'd play Prince and Journey and Aerosmith, a lot of 80s music as well. And but then I have the people that I discovered on my own, and I discovered really Jackson's music, especially the deep cuts on my own. And I discovered Dylan's music, because every interview I was seeing with Bruce and other people, everybody was pointing back to Bob. And so I was like, I went and asked my parents. I said, what's up with Bob Dylan? What do you guys think about Bob Dylan? And my dad was like, oh, he can't sing. Bob can't sing. And I was like, okay, that's what you guys, think. So a couple weeks later, I got a Bob Dylan CD at the Goodwill in Marco Island, Florida. And I just wore the thing out. I think it was the greatest hits, maybe, which led me to Highway 61 and the freewheeling. And when I want to sharpen my skills, or I want to learn something, I feel like I go back to Dylan's early records and I re-canvas. I think that Bob is, as far as I'm concerned, Bob is really the American poet.
He's the pinnacle.
Maybe you can make a case that Pete and Woody, are the first ones, of course, but Bob really took things to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and you can hear that in your music. You definitely can. And I have to tell you, I first of all, I was honored that you sent me the song, and not because I'm on the radio with you now, but it's probably the best song, "Cold in July," that you've written. It's a hit, my friend. It's one of the best.
Well,
it's one of the best pieces of music I've heard in a long, long time. And Evan will echo my thoughts. He's been listening to it as well, which gets me excited to hear this entire album. Now, I was a fan of Gone as well, and it was such a great song. And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
but you can really see, where you're headed and how much you've grown as a musician as a songwriter. You're a great musician, but as a songwriter, and I will say, listening to your podcast, this could be your calling as well. You're really good at interview. I loved listening.
It's
to your
nice to be
podcast.
back. I had fun, last time around, and it's nice to be back doing it. So, but no, honestly, I try to keep. I have this theory of, you can't care too much what a lot of people think, but you should care a lot about what the people that are important to you, what they think. And I do. You're one of the few people I send the music to early, and I really, respect what you have to say, because I know that you know good music, and the type of music that we both have in common. And I really Gone. There is a thread really between Gone and Cold in July for sure. They both came pretty fast. I think that's the key to the good songs. There's some that I've sweated over for way too long, but I love. I'm a big fan of both of those songs.
Where did Cold in July come from? Where did that concept come from?
I saw this book. The author's name is slipping me. I got it written down. I just wrote it the other day, but I saw this book at a thrift shop. I find a lot of things at thrift shops. Unlock the Chain came from a book that I saw and read about a kid from Indiana. And I didn't buy the book. I was distracted and forgot to come back to it, but I remember the title, Cold in July. And I actually, a song that I listened to and kind of kept in my head for a while, long before the music came to me, was Mahoney's Black and Milds.
Yes.
And so I had this picking sequence, and I was like, oh, this is great. And it sounded too much like Black and Milds after, some time of playing it. So I called Bobby. I was like, I got this great song, but it sounds too much like your damn song. And he, gave me some key ideas. I changed some stuff around, and he's like, no, keep that. Just doing it in a different key. So we found the right key. Bobby's been instrumental in helping me on the record with, suggestions if I'm at a crossroads, pointing me in a direction. So I finally found the right key for it, and the words kind of came quick. The idea of a lot of my songs were about getting through heartbreak or recovering from being kicked down, and I'm always reminded back to the Tom Petty, in Refugee. Somewhere, somehow, somebody must have kicked you around, son, and I think a lot of great songs come from that place right there. So I wanted to write a song that, I've come a long way from those early, year heartbreaks that you feel like you won't recover from. And this song was a lot about saying, hey, even though things are what they are, like, you can get past them and you can come to terms with them. I think there's a line in it about, we may never make it back, and I'm all right with that, And
right.
So I think it was just coming to some terms. If you don't get closure from someone else, sometimes you have to give yourself closure. So I really think that's really where a lot of the song comes from.
Well, the song is very deep, and it's really catchy. I think I had it on repeat for about an hour this morning, and it just kept playing.
Wow!
You don't get tired.
You're killing me. You're killing me right now. That's fantastic.
Listen, you know me. I would never say it if I didn't mean it. And
Absolutely,
I'm a big fan of singer-songwriters, and for you to become an instant favorite, I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. I really love your music, and I'm really looking forward to the new album, because if this is what we're to look forward to with the rest of the songs, it's definitely going to be a dynamite record. I mean, I can't believe the amount of great young songwriters that I've been introduced to through Light of Day. Yourself, Jake Thistle, Jared Clemens, Jake Matheson out in Minnesota now, who's been doing a lot of work with Danny. It's amazing the amount of guys like yourself that are playing the music that I grew up to, and I enjoyed, 40 years ago, 35 years ago, and you guys are keeping it alive and bringing it back. And I think that's why I've become such a big fan of you guys. It's because you're keeping, I like to call it my music alive, the stuff that I enjoy. The Jackson
Carrying the
Browne,
torch,
Bruce
carrying the torch. That's
You are.
honestly,
You
I
got-
think
it's
that's the
been handed
strongest tie between all of us. Is the carrying that torch together. I think that's what ties me to Mahoney and to Jake and to Evan and there's plenty of a young guy that comes to my head that's really one of the best musicians that I've ever seen is Schindler. Dylan Schindler. He's fantastic.
I feel bad that I didn't mention. Yes, Dylan is fantastic. Yes, Dylan Schindler is fantastic.
There's so many good guys out there. It's tough to keep up with everybody, and there's always new musicians coming up too. So I think that everybody's different. Everyone's got a different sound and a different take and technique. But that connection of we all basically fish from the same pond. I feel like. Yeah,
I love your I love your analogies, my friend. You are quite right, and I guess that's why you're the songwriter.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Rotella, everybody. I really appreciate you, David, for being my first guest, and this is my first time doing this new format from the old format that we had. And I was telling people, it's tough to find new music and new artists when you can't go out to the clubs, Yeah. And you can't go out and scout. We were big scout people down here, If we weren't playing ourselves on one night, we'd be going out to, we saw a flyer with so-and-so, and we don't know who this person is, but we'll go have a drink and check them out. And I think that's one of the things I miss maybe the most about the whole thing, is being able to go and find new talent. That's how all of the music on the last podcast came together, was just, going out and seeing people play live.
Yeah, now you gotta flip around the internet and see if you can pick up on some online streaming shows. But yeah, you're right, and we'll be back to it. I'm very confident that we'll get to this in the spring, and we'll all be back together. And I want to thank you for having me as a guest. It was an honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next, my friend. You're a very talented musician and talented songwriter, and it's been great getting to know you.
Well, thank you, my brother. Listen, everybody, while you're on here, while you're listening, go check out Light of Day Canada. I know you can follow them on Instagram at the LOD Canada username. Go check them out. It's lightofdaycanada.com, correct?
Yep, lightofdaycanada.com and evanrotella.com. Two great websites. Go check them out.
Yes, of course. Put together by Mr. Rotella himself. Everybody, make sure that you check out Evan's shows. You're doing those shows on Tuesdays now, right?
Yeah, not every Tuesday. I think people are getting a little, I don't want to say tired, but I think, they've been flooded with online shows. So we're doing one a month. He's doing a Christmas show December 15th on a Tuesday. It's called Evan's 7 at 7, and they've been going pretty good. We get, he's got his core group that comes out and watches them, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to, try out new songs and play some old covers and favorites.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to that. And once again, a big mighty thanks to Mr. David Rotella, all the way from Niagara, Canada. And once again, make sure you guys check out Light of Day Canada online and check out Evan Rotella's music, available right now on all the streaming platforms. You can also check out Evan's 7 on 7 live streaming series on Facebook, with the next episode, Christmas special, dropping 2 weeks from tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Also tonight, you heard my new single, Cold in July, of my upcoming record, At Night in the Dark, dropping January 1st. If you like what you heard, Cold in July, featuring my good friends Ryan B. and Miss Nay Rose, will be available starting tomorrow on YouTube and SoundCloud, and also as well on the streaming platform starting sporadically tonight at midnight. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us, and make sure that you join us again this Saturday night for episode 2, season 2 of the Local Sounds podcast. This time featuring my good brother and hilarious Miami-based comedian Jack Norris. He'll be joining us in the studio to talk comedy and music and much, much more. We hope that you'll join us this upcoming Saturday at 7 p.m. for more music, more conversation, and more local sounds. I'm your host, Taylor Davis. We'll see you Saturday night. Have a good rest of your week.